Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, it is day 4 of RPG A Day 2018, and so our prompt for today is most memorable NPC. And this is kind of hard for me at first. I really had to think about this for a couple days. I was glad this was a few days in because the prompt for day 5 is favorite recurring NPC. And I really had to kind of tease these two apart because in many cases they were one and the same. You know, a lot of my most memorable NPCs, both as a game master and as a player, have been ones that have been recurring. So I had to kind of think about this a little bit. As it turns out, my most memorable NPC is a recurring one, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Stepping back a little bit, you know, to me, like, non-player characters are one of those things that makes the world real. It's something that, you know, it's no secret that I tend to like to, you know, play a character in a dynamic and vibrant world, and I try to, like, have the character also be dynamic and vibrant and feel real. And everything feels real when everything feels real, if you know what I mean. And, you know, non-player characters to me, just, you know, it's my preference that they not just be part of the background, part of the backdrop, but they actually be be living, breathing characters. You know, not unlike our own. And opinions or preferences, you know, vary, and there's nothing wrong with these variances and preferences. And, you know, if anything, my evolution over time as a gamer, you know, my preferences or my approaches to non-player characters have kind of changed because, you know, for a long time, they were kind of like conduits of information. They were, you know, obstacles to be overcome, or allies, or resources, or the people that put, you know, the givers of quests and all that kind of good stuff. And, you know, but honestly, they were really just ways for the game master to interact with the players behind kind of a lifeless mask. They really weren't all that real. But I found over time that I had the most satisfying experiences when the non-player characters were just as real as the player characters, that they seemed like living, breathing people with motivations and interests and the whole 9 yards. And so how we make these seem real, you know, it's not that different than how you make your characters seem real. And it could just be, you know, portraying some kind of quirks or flaws or mannerisms, or describing all kinds of things about them, or, you know, whatever the heck it happens to be, you know. And I actually had a talk with a group of friends today, a little bit. We were talking about, like, well, just how much description is really needed to make an NPC cross that boundary and become real. And, you know, we're not really sure. Maybe not that much. I think, to me, a lot of times it's more player buy-in. It's the willingness to accept them as a real person. And it's kind of weird to figure out exactly how this happens when players decide that this particular non-player character is somebody of interest, that they become more interested in them than, you know, the others. And so that's something for further analysis and discussion, as you know, as far as I see it. That's something that's kind of interested me very recently. But I'm digressing. Let's get back to this real non-player character. There's a whole bunch that I could think of that maybe were really memorable, and there's lots of really great portrayals and, you know, really well done personalities, you know, people that really kind of just left an impact. But much to my surprise, the one that was the most memorable was one that was very, very unlikely. And in my last year or so of gaming, I've had games where the non-player characters seemed extremely real, and other ones where they seemed a little bit flat. And, you know, it just depends on the approach to the game and how long we play the game, that sort of thing. But in our All for One campaign, consistently, the non-player characters have felt very authentic. And I know who they are. I can envision them, you know, and I know, you know, just how my character feels about them, you know, the impressions they give me, all that sort of stuff. And there's a whole host of non-player characters to choose from, a whole rogues gallery of bad guys and a few good guys. However, there's one that, you know, has become the most memorable to me, and it's one that was incredibly surprising. But, you know, when I was thinking about it, you know, the last couple of days, you know, they just came right up, and I said, you know, and I kept on rejecting the idea, and finally I had to come back to, yes, in fact, Eugene is the most memorable non-player character I've had in a while. And this is somebody that, you know, started out life before the game, Briscoe's lackey. And, you know, we knew who she was before we ever played. And it's a mechanical part of All for One Regime Diabolique. Your musketeer has a lackey. It's part of, you know, an extension of your character. It's part of the genre. And so Francois decided his womanizing musketeer, Briscoe, was going to have a lackey that was secretly in love with him. And so this is a woman, an actress that, you know, saw him. You know, he saw her in a play one time. They were supposed to have a rendezvous. I forget exactly what the story is, but she fell in love with him, and of course he just moved on to the next women. And so, in desperation, she impersonated a man and became his lackey and followed him around. And you know, after a while, nobody really knew that it was a woman. But over time, you know, as the game progressed, everybody found out, except for Briscoe, who was completely oblivious. And we've had some of the most wonderful, hilarious, comical, touching, moving scenes. We've had scenes with Eugene, who was drunk. We've had to save her. You know, it's run the gamut. And at this point, we've kind of developed this possible, really bizarre love triangle between Briscoe and Eugene and Philippe, who kind of likes her, it seems. And we're not really sure if she likes him as well. But she's been, you know, put in danger several times. And now, you know, one of those funny things with our last session, it turned out that Eugene was in an incredible amount of danger and almost died, you know. And as a result, you know, Philippe was willing to make a deal with the devil, practically, with this vampire, and has put us in a very tough spot. Of course, he also saved Briscoe's life doing this, but you know, it was one of those moments where Philippe, I noticed, you know, cared about her that much as a person that he was willing to do something very rash. And so, oddly enough, this minor character has become the most memorable NPC for me. So, what about you? Have you had somebody that you never would have expected become a memorable NPC? Tell me about it. And I'll see you tomorrow.